Hey, this is Josh with New Review, coming at you with a new review on the Spike TV series based on the Stephen King novella, I think novella, The Mist. The Mist takes place in a small town in Maine, uh, right by a military base called Arrowhead, um, and it follows these individuals as this grayish, darkish mist comes into town and wreaks havoc all over the place. The first episode before the mist actually hits, it's a setup episode. We learn about everything that's going on in this town, how people feel about everyone else, um, and it seems like our main characters. Let me just double check real quick on that. Seems our main characters don't seem to fit in for various reasons. Um, so Alex Copeland, who's the daughter. She, she's the daughter. Yeah, the daughter. Um, she is this young kid trying to fit in. She has a friend who's a little out there, a little different. What's his name? Anyways, so he's a little different. And she apparently gets raped in the first episode after being told she could go to a party by her dad. Her dad is Kevin, and he's not really viewed as a man by anyone around him. Well, any of the men that he's around, because apparently they grew up in this town. His brother, the sheriff, they all view him as a little bit lesser. And Eve, when she was a teenager, she was a bit she's a little promiscuous, which it's fine, it's whatever, it's what you choose. But a small town, 10, 20 years ago, 20 years ago or so, it's going to be viewed a little different then than it is now. Um, and those are the main three characters. There's also another character. Her name is Natalie Raven. She's a bit of a hippie, bit of a flower child, not native to the town. Um, she has a really, really interesting character arc. All of them do. All of them have very interesting character arcs. Um, there's also a man named Brian Hunt, who's a bit of an amnesiac, uh, and a woman named Maya Lambert, who's a bit of a who's a drug addict, apparently recovering drug addict. Adrian, that's the name of the kid of Alex's friend, and there's also another kid named Connor who is accused of raping her. Um, yes, those are the main characters. And what I really like about this show is it's exploring how people react to a situation like this. A good portion of the plot is a little bit of questioning whether or not Connor actually raped her. Um, even Eve seems to be a little skeptical. Even Alex seems to be a little skeptical after a while. Um, and these characters are split into three main areas. One is the mall, which is where Eve and Alex are, and they happen to be uh, stuck there with Connor at the beginning of the series. The other group is Kevin and Adrian, and they seem to be the hop around kind of characters because they don't stay in one place too long. And the third is Natalie and the cop, the sheriff, and they get stuck at a church for a while. And when the mist is coming in, it's the second episode. Everyone's and it's enveloping the town. Everyone's like, everything's normal. Um, and while the mist is there, crazy things start happening. Natalie Raven's husband, he gets shot by a man who's been confused by the mist. So that kind of starts her on a bit of a journey for herself, um, because she doesn't seem to know how to react. She seems to at first be very sad, want to be with her husband, and she wants to die. That changes quickly after another person stuck in the church dies while trying to get her to go back into the church, and then she starts this really interesting transformation into kind of like this cult leader, I guess you could say. Um, and it's a very interesting transformation. She becomes more and more enamored with the mist and kind of gets this like pantheistic religious thing going on. Pantheism being like a nature, a natural order kind of religion thing, um, which eventually leads to her uh, accepting a trial by ordeal with Father Romanov, who's the Catholic priest in town. He loses. He's killed by a mist hallucination of the Four Horsemen. And Natalie comes back unscathed, and everyone in the church seems to be enamored by her. And when she decides to go to the mall to go punish Connor for raping Alex, most of the church people in the church don't want to go, so she burns them all alive, except for herself, the sheriff, and a married couple who, after the husband gets injured in this most recent episode, they get killed off because they can't really wait, and every act of destruction is an act of creation. And her character arc is very interesting. To be honest, I don't see the series going beyond a season. I could be wrong. They could have more stories, but I don't really see see this going beyond a season. Um, and that's the church story arc. The jumping around story arc follows Kevin, Adrian, and Maya and Brian, who are the soldier and the amnesiac and the drug addict. Um, they first are at the police station and they're trying to, and they don't want to be left behind. They think they're going to die. Um, so they stock up on some stuff, get a car, and they start driving. They end up in the church with Natalie, um, and there's a bit of a tussle between a bit of tension between the sheriff and Kevin. Um, and there's some interesting connections with the, the characters there that I really enjoyed. However, since Maya and Brian were prisoners, the sheriff's not so happy. So they lock them in the basement, and Kevin gets locked there because he's like, "This is dumb. You shouldn't do this." And so they get locked. He gets locked in there, and Adrian gets them out by tricking Father Romanov and getting the key from him, and they leave. Um, and each thing seems to happen episode by episode. Um, so they then end up in a gas station, and they have this really interesting conversation with a man looking for his son in a car that's like apocalypse proof. Um, and they've stumbled upon his son. He's dead, and he's looking for gas, and they're not sure if they should tell him or not because they're trying to get to the mall to get to Alex and Eve. Um, Eventually, they do tell him, and he's devastated, and they try to move on to the next place they need to go, and he's walking off in the mist. They then end up, and Wald's trying to talk to him. He gets distraught and he shoots Brian. Um, so they go to the hospital. They do everything they can to help him, and Kevin also um, runs into his brother who's been stabbed through the abdomen. And at this hospital, they're in the emergency wing, and that's the only part of the hospital that wasn't taken over by the mist. And the mist seems to play on people's psychological fears, um, or issues that happened to them in the past, and it's all very. And those hallucinations seem to be the thing that tries to kill them. Um, and it turns out the doctor is trying to, the only doctor there is trying to figure out a way to cure people of mist hallucinations or something like that, so they can leave in relative safety. Um, and his next subject is Kevin, and he justifies it by saying he's only doing those who seem to be about to die. Um, Kevin tried to save his brother, but he ended up having to shoot him. Let's see, next. Uh, the power, which kept the doors closed at the hospital, goes out and they open, and so the only people who are saved by going into the psych ward are Kevin, Adrian, and the bully, who's friends with Connor. I can't remember his name at the moment. And so they're there for an episode. Um, Maya kind of separated from the group and went to her old house to get some stuff that she needed, and has very interesting conversation with her mother, who happens to be a hallucination of her in her mind. And at the psych ward, Adrian's taken by this man who's in the psych ward for, by the end of the episode, obvious reasons. And he's going to be killed, but Kevin saves him and kills the man. And they continued their hopping, and they next go to Adrian's house to get gas, where Maya and Brian are the ones who volunteer to get the gas, and they end up banging. Adrian uh, goes to talk to his parents, and Kevin just sits there waiting. He meets a character who had been in the hospital in the not hospital the mall originally, but had been kicked out, and he's added to their group. After a while, he goes back into after hearing a gunshot. He goes back into Adrian's house, and Adrian's parents. One of them died because of the mist and birds. The other one, who seems to have been taunting him, which led Adrian to explain that he had raped Alex and not Connor. Adrian kills his dad, and then Kevin comes in. He seems to be trying to comfort him, even though Adrian lied, saying his dad tried to kill him. And then Adrian kind of admits to what happened, and Kevin reacts to that in a way that Adrian doesn't like, and tries to kill Kevin, and then claims Kevin is dead because his dad killed him. And then they go on their merry way to the mall. While the mall character that Kevin met stays behind with him, or ends up staying behind with him because he can't really go back to the mall. And these characters get to the mall, and everything seems to be breaking down by the time they get there. Kevin and Vic, the character who was kicked out of the mall, they start house hopping to get back to the mall because Kevin convinces Vic to help go with him. And it appears that Kevin gets over his issues with the mist because the hallucination that appears before him is a darker version of himself, and Kevin kills his hallucination. Um, so that's a very interesting point. Maybe he's now immune, like Natalie, to the mist. Um, and the mall, it's a bit of the way that it's presented. It's basically civilization locked off from civilization. Their first intimation that the mist is dangerous is a woman who is kind of like a holier than thou attitude, and she goes out into the mist with her son. Her son's probably dead, and she runs. She gets attacked by something. The mist runs to the door, and her jaw is gone. It's just gone, and she's terrified and doing a guttural scream that you can only do when your jaw's gone, and then is pulled back into the mist. And it's basically how do they create a and the whole point of this one is creating a society within the mall, and then they create two societies because Eve and doesn't want to be around Connor, and a few other um, mall members go with them, including a man named Raj Al Fayed, who's Muslim probably, and he feels a little discriminated against for being a Muslim. And now at the point that we are, it appears that Alex is being framed for murder, and now people are going to possibly lynch her, or more probably kick her out into the mist, which she seems to be immune to as well. So that is the mist so far. This week is the season finale, so I will do a review of the season finale. Um, this has been Joshua with New Review, signing off.